Get cheating like that. Don't look at that.
We got a little lunch down there. Yeah, that's good, all right.
Should we call this meeting to order?
I think so.
All right, we'll do so. Well, welcome, everybody.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Those of you that I've met, my name is Tom Dalick. I'm a member of the Board of Selectmen and serves as chair this year. The members of the board, Vice Chair Dan Dubois, Jason Minetto sitting right here, and Phil Labby. We are missing one member, Belma Hayes, who's out traipsing with Bob's wife someplace, I understand, at this point in time. Thanks for everybody for volunteering to serve on this committee. Generally, since I've been on the Board of Selectmen, whenever we've asked for volunteers to serve on a committee that's going to involve any substantial investment of time, the response is usually deafening silence, which ends up usually having called Jack Reach or Jack Turcotte here to bail us out on some basis, and thankfully they do. So it's a welcome surprise to have all you folks raise your hands and volunteer to serve on this committee. We appreciate it a lot. I thought before we got into things that maybe what we ought to do is go around the table and introduce ourselves. Maybe just a little background information about where you live here in town, unless you want to need that to be confidential for some reason. And maybe what you do during your daylight hours, those types of things. As I said, my name's Tom Dalick. I live on Bittersweet Drive. It's a private road kind of in the northwest corner of the community here. You actually got to leave town to get to us. We're the only ones on 35 in the town in a subdivision up there. I've been on the Board of Selectmen for more years than I can remember, but it's been a good time and I've enjoyed it very much. In my daylight hours, I practice law in Biddeford. I've been doing it for about 35, 40 years at this point in time, and that's about my story. Why don't we head down this way with Phil there?
I'm Phil Labby. I live on Limerick Road. I do site work and construction, all kinds of dirt work. Been in business for 57 years for myself, and our operation is on Route 111, and that's dirt work is what I've done my entire life.
Jason Netto. I married into Arundel. My wife was born and raised in Arundel. I live on 111, building contractor. Sit on the selectmen board, pretty involved in town. Like to see this project come to fruition. You're up there.
Dan Dubois, went on my, shooting for my third term as selectman. Prior to that, I was 7 years on the planning board. I've been in the town of Arundel for about 25 years. My day job is Pratt Whitney, North Berwick. I've been there about 39 years in service manager, and just been pretty active in trying to get this done for the town here, and really appreciate all of the folks that have stepped up to this. I think this is going to work out pretty good.
I'm Adam Goulette, a new resident. I lived here for about 3 years, right across from the town hall. Most of the ladies all know who I am around town. Most people in town. Not around Bentleys, I don't say. But no, I'm a building contractor. You know, I'm just interested in what goes on around town. Serve someday, whatever happens. You know, so feel like I got good input.
Hi, I'm, pardon me, Steve DL, which looks like Dalzell, but it's pronounced DL. And that's Scottish, not Czechoslovakian. I'm not from around here, but I've been in Arundel for 17 years now. And until nearly 4 years ago, I ran the design program down at Landing School. And now I don't do that anymore. I just do still some boat design, not much. But mostly I'm a gun stock maker now. I'm a retiree. But I do have significant CAD skills and software capability because I've kept all that going. So I really volunteered to do this to offer a zero cost option for drawing ideas up. You can. I learnt very early teaching design. You can wave your arms around a lot and talk, and it doesn't mean anything, but a picture actually contributes something. So I'm very happy to do that for people. And I live on West Lane, which is the little lane that runs up beside the Blueberry Farm, right opposite the town hall site.
I'm Rob Ingerson. My wife and I own and operate a design and build company in Arundel, and I live on family property across from Ginny Walker on Curtis Road. So some people know where it is.
I'm Bill Woodland, I live on the Kennebunk River, on the Arundel side, of course. And I've got no building or design experience. I've developed free software for 40 years. And I'm retired, so now I have time to give a little bit back to the town.
My name is Rich Fitzmaurice. Live on Kayla Drive, which is off of Thompson Road, right at the, get the next town. Can't remember. Sorry. I work out of my home. My main office is in Georgia, where I moved from about 7 years ago. I work in the, I've been in the construction industry about 30 years. Started back with W.R. Grace and moved on from other things, but now I'm in a construction information service. So what I'll bring to the table is knowing the players in the manufacturing area, who designs like the smart boards and all the different things that get specified. That's where my expertise is. That's what I do all day long. I work with manufacturers all day long to help them get specified in projects. And that's in the United States and Canada. And I've worked on other building, ones when I lived in Connecticut, worked on 2 school projects there. So I'm a little familiar with the process, but it's been so many years, I'm really eager to get back into it.
I'm Tom McGann, and I have been in Arundel 29 years now. And I'm on the planning board for 25 years. I think I was chair for almost 20 years. For a day job, I teach over at Yorktown Community College, architectural design, and I have a cast there too, but I'm not retired, so it's all yours. Yeah. So, and I've been waiting for this to happen for years. It's always been in the works, but I'm glad to see it finally started.
I'm Jack Trekott, I live in Fairway Drive, a little subdivision down here on 111. I just retired as a superintendent of schools. I've been superintendent of schools for 40 years. Also as town manager, and have toyed with that, and actually did a little work with this board before Keith and after Todd. I sat in here for a while and filled in. So my experience has been school construction, as you would expect, to build a lot of them. And when I was a town manager in Watchett, the police station was, quote, a project that I had under my time there. So that kind of fell on my shoulders a little bit. So we built that. So I've got some construction experience, although I have no contractor experience whatsoever, but I do understand a little bit about building in a public arena. So I'm a little bit motivated because I worked in Keith's office and hated it. And so I actually can really sympathize with the need in that current facility to be addressed. I mean, people are all saints that work there. It's time. It's simply time. And that's my contribution. A little bit of cheerleading. Right.
My name's Bob Pelletier, and I've lived in Arundel, I guess, for 26 years. I was born and brought up in Kennebunk. I started building houses back when I was in high school. That was my summer job. And after I went in the military, I was combat engineer in the military, so I was still in the construction, building and destroying. And then I went to work and was in the oil and propane business for 33 years. And I'm retired now, and I have a nonprofit where we put disabled vets on the water fishing. That's where I spend 90% of my retirement time is getting veterans out on the water fishing. So Because I've done construction from the shovel work up to running machinery, done it all, so I hope I can add a little bit to this and make this, this building one of the best, and, for the town and for the people who work in the building.
Jack Reeds. I retired about 20 years ago, and the last 15 years spent here in Arundel, bugging the selectmen to get going on a town hall. Right?
Correct.
I hope to live long enough to see it happen. So that's the front end. My career was in software development. Started on the West Coast, spent another 35 years in the Boston area, and retired up here. I have spent a number of years, in fact, I'm still currently on the school district building committee. So I've been involved in the renovation of high school, of this building, and consolidated, not in the physical aspects of it, but in the needs analysis and going through the iteration of coming to a final conclusion and then moving on through getting funding approved. And it turns out I too was in the combat engineers back in the Korean War in the 82nd Airborne. Long time.
Thanks, Jack.
I'm Ethan Davis. I live over on Mountain Road, and been there for about 12 years. So I guess as far as, well, what I do for work right now is primarily, right now I'm working as a tutor over at Biddeford Center of Technology, but for the previous 6 years I was a science teacher at Biddeford Middle School. So a little bit more maybe relevant experience. Well, actually, a couple other things that I do. I'm teaching karate for Arundel Rec, and also I've got a little bike shop, recumbent bike shop that I do from home. But before all that stuff, I used to work at Wood Structures as a designer, so I've got some knowledge of how buildings go together and figuring loads and stuff like that. But I think the big reason that I wanted to get involved with this project is feels like it's a really big opportunity for our town to to meet all kinds of needs besides just having a place for town government to take place. So I'd like to hopefully give some input and feedback on that.
Yeah, sorry. Again, apologies for being late. Joseph Samard, or Joe Samard. I've been in town for about 9 years. I live on Jubilee Lane, off of Old Post Road, just a shared driveway. Moved up here to go teach down at UNE. I'm a chemist, so I have no actual formal construction or design. But my father worked at a lumber store, so we do quite a few of our own home projects. So I am avid DIYer on that end. And me and my wife have 2 young kids, and we want to stay in Arundel, for our lives. So we're looking forward to I want to be sort of involved and just, again, I want to see the town, produce something and provide a space that we can, again, not just for town government, that we can use, and just want to sort of provide input. And knowing that I plan on being here for a while, even though I've only been here 9 years. But
my name is Keith Trefevin. I'm the town manager, so at this table, I'm the only hired help here this evening. I've been in municipal government for about 40 years. I've dealt with a couple projects at the municipal level in my time. I'm excited. I really am very excited about seeing all the people around the table this evening, and the people that have really shown an interest. I hope that we can put together something with all the people here that we can be very proud of, that we can support when the time comes and we're ready to go to a town meeting to get some money. So thank you for your service even before it starts.
Yes, thank you, everyone. That was great. I mean, when we first started to put this together, there was some concern about the size of the committee. And once we put out the request for volunteers and got the responses we did, and particularly when we got the responses from people with various expertise that would really be helpful to the whole process, it just made sense to anybody who wanted to show up, come on down, that was our position. So I think we have a wonderful cross-section of experience and expertise and a variety of areas here. I think it's going to be real helpful for this process.
And I thought I was special.
Yes, Rich.
Who's this back here, please? She didn't introduce
I'm
herself.
sorry, this is Simone Boissonot. She's our town clerk.
Hi, Simone. Thank you.
For 100 and
I just
something years.
kind of
Yeah.
want to fly on the wall.
Forever.
She's the nicest one here.
Surprised everybody here doesn't know you.
I know it.
I just assume everybody else assesses you at some point.
She's right ahead over the crew.
Right, and does it well.
Yes.
Indeed. Okay, with that, a couple of things. Keith prepared an agenda here. First item on was an election of chair and vice chair and secretary. At last night's selectmen's meeting, we discussed delaying doing that, basically because we don't know each other a whole lot. I mean, some of us do. I've known Tom for a long time, and I know Jack and others, and Jack Reed's here, but some of you other folks we haven't worked with, we haven't served with.
Never seen.
So it made sense to us, at least as Board of Selectmen, that perhaps we ought to get to know each other a little bit. We don't know exactly what the duties of the chair would be at this point in time. I'm suspecting that whoever it is might have to spend a little more time than just at these meetings, perhaps with design professionals, maybe going to site visits, those types of things. So before we get into it, I think people ought to know, raise their hand to be the chair of this committee, ought to know be involved, and ought to know, as I said, get a better feel for who's here, who's working. So what we're going to do is just delay doing that maybe for several meetings, and I'll just serve as an interim chair, so to speak, and Dan will serve as the interim vice chair until we get to that point where we decide that one of us among us or two of us among us are going to take those positions. Is that okay with everybody?
Put it on the last meeting agenda. Right, that's right. Yes.
And another thing that I just want to raise, I mean, this is a large committee, but I'm hoping that we will make decisions on a consensus basis. It's going to be really important that once, whatever product is produced here and we present to the voters, it's got to be presented with full support of this committee. If there's any dissension, it goes nowhere, I can tell you. That's all the town, some people in this town need to hear, and this thing will go down in flames. So we really got to work at getting to a point where everybody's, may not be happy with everything, but everybody's got to be able to support it, and support it to the voters and the public when it comes to that. So hopefully we can work.
Yeah, let's make sure that, you know, our eyes are open, our ears are open, and, you know, we all have to be open to a bunch of different ideas. We got a whole bunch of different disciplines here, and, you know, we gotta come together as a collaboration and make sure, to Tom's point, we may not all agree on everything, but we got a lot of people for our committee to do something like this, so I think we just have to make sure that we're all open, and if it's not our way, that's okay, but as a board, we gotta do what's best for the town and kind of all be ready for that.
Notice the secretary position wasn't mentioned yet.
We'll get to that too. I'm sorry.
Let me know and I'll leave. Everybody will leave on this.
That's right. I'm just going to move to one item on the agenda I thought we might want to take up first. Meeting schedule and meeting sequences is number 5 here, but I'd like to see if everybody's comfortable with Tuesdays as the meeting date at this time. Is okay?
The only days I can't do is I have PTA meetings on the first Tuesday of every month. That's it.
Okay.
That would just be a conflict.
Okay.
I might be the only one, but that's, yeah.
I'm gonna miss a bunch, Tom, on Tuesday.
On Tuesdays?
Yeah, I work EMS and well, so.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's all right.
I can, yeah.
Would it help if I brought a GoPro and just taped the meeting?
As Jason.
I mean, it's easy enough.
The meeting is being
We
taped.
We are.
Wanna take break
So we're gonna stick with Tuesdays. and Jason will do the best he can.
Yeah, I'll try to.
Yeah, okay. You know, we'll keep you in the loop on these things. And if you have an occasional conflict, Joe,
Yeah.
we'll deal with that, okay? Anybody have any thoughts on how often we should be meeting? Is it?
Well, sorry.
I feel like at least for this month, probably weekly, and then taper off once we get going. There's not a lot of time left before winter comes, and unfortunately, the spring's barely here. So I think we ought to get moving if people can make that as many as possible.
Did you have something you said?
Well, I guess it kind of depends on this, I would think on the scope of what we need to actually accomplish, which we haven't gotten to speak about yet.
Right. Anybody else have any thoughts?
Yeah, like, what's the end goal? When are we trying to have people vote on this? Like, is there an end goal?
I think.
Is that the first
it's gonna
thing we
be
should
driven.
discuss?
It's gonna be driven by, once we get to an end product. We're envisioning probably having a special town meeting at some point to vote on this, rather than try to schedule it at a
Okay.
regular.
So I'm saying, like, you're trying to get this built this year, you're saying winter's coming, I mean, I built all winter, so it's not like winter's much of a factor for too much,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
it's Maine.
Right.
It's easier to build when it's not winter.
What? It comes every 6 months now.
Would it make sense to skip the first Monday, so Jason?
Yeah.
What's that?
Since you can't make first Monday.
First
why not just-
Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesdays are gonna be tough for me, but I can adjust my schedule accordingly.
Mm.
I don't think we're gonna end up meeting every week, right? Is that,
Well, Jack's suggesting at least starting out.
Just for a few weeks here.
I'll make it happen.
I can't meet next Tuesday.
Sometimes the agenda will dictate the need for meetings. I mean, weekly meetings may be necessary if the agenda is long and worthy of our time. I'd hate to meet weekly if there wasn't a full schedule of activities to meet around.
Mhm.
Why
That
can't
makes
that be
sense.
brought up at the end of the meeting? Do we wanna meet next Tuesday, do we wanna meet the next Tuesday?
I guess I was just thinking in terms of people planning ahead, rather than wait till the end of the meeting, you'd know that we're meeting either every other week, or once a month, or, so you can schedule that against.
Maybe we
your-
could just wait till the end of this meeting.
Yeah, just,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
that's what I meant,
okay.
the end of this meeting,
Oh,
tonight, so
okay.
then we can see how we have to progress. If we gotta meet
Okay.
every week, then we do. If we finally don't, then
Does anybody have any issues with, some people do, with the length of the meeting? Sometimes people confine it to 2 hours, don't want to be here till 12 o'clock. Does anybody have any concerns about that?
I think it'd be good to shoot the 2, and you can go over a little bit, that's all right, but I'm not up for 3.5-hour meetings.
Yeah, most people aren't.
Productivity has traditionally been a couple hours.
Okay,
Right.
so we're gonna try to hold it to a 2-hour
max.
meeting, okay. Okay, I guess the next issue is, we want to discuss is, where do we go from here? I think. Is our next step to discuss getting a design professional of some sort involved? Because if we do that, that's gonna be something we're gonna have to put out to bid. So we need to get after that pretty soon. Yes, Bob?
I think we have enough expertise right here at this table.
Mm-hmm.
That we don't have to go outside.
No.
Yeah, I think.
We're all
I think
the
right.
residents, and we've got the expertise here.
He's offering that for free.
Yeah.
It's gonna
To-
cost
to
10
do
times
that.
what you.
Why have to worry about spending money for somebody else to do it?
Crazy.
We've got people here that are willing to step up and
You
do
got,
some plans for us.
you got free help, and then you got backup to go over the free help, and then backup. to
I'm
go
getting,
over
but
the-
I guess the question would be, how many people do we have, I understand we have expertise, but do we have expertise in laying out municipal buildings against codes, against standards?
Yeah.
We don't have any
those types of
structural engineers
things?
here,
Yes,
right?
Bob?
I would
Well,
suggest,
yes, but not a certified one.
I would suggest that we move forward with the resources we have available here, and until we get some basics down, some parameters that we can all agree on. We don't necessarily have to have final drawings, but oftentimes when we work with clients in our business, what we do is rough drawings, which can be very simple,
Mhm.
just layout. So we're all working on the same page and have something to offer before you just drop it in the lap of an architect engineering firm who has their own ideas of what they want to see here. So I would think it could be beneficial to get something simple down that we all have, you know, basic agreement on, and can present that to the design build firm or whoever it may be to say, this is what we want you to run with.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing I would say, having done some seriously expensive projects over the years, much more expensive than this is going to turn out to be. The first thing we need to know, before we start worrying about what the building looks like and how it's laid out, is what this building's got to do. We have to have a specification in terms of what it's got to supply, in terms of offices, meeting rooms, other rooms, archive spaces, etc., etc., etc. And to get that right is going to require significant input, I think, not just from the committee, but from the end users of the building, which is, and not, Simone is obviously a major player, and so is Keith, but I think almost everybody who works for the town is going to have some incompatible needs, because that's the nature of design for complex projects, and we're going to have to navigate through that. But we do need to know, I think, how many people, how much growth we've got to allow, public toilets available for people using the trails that will be a part of this, you know, all those sorts of things, before anybody really nails anything down on a piece of paper.
Maybe you could send out like a general email asking all the employees what they're lacking, what they think they could need, what.
I think that's, actually, you won't get very good results from that. You have to guide the discussion. Not to get what you want, because otherwise you get...
And I think some of that work has already been done. We've already done a bunch of that work.
I'm sure it has.
And at some point in time, if
Yeah,
you
I'm sure that's
share
work.
some of
Yeah,
that,
just to give you a little bit of history, since 2009, there was a building committee that was established in 2009 that went ahead and put out an RFP for design professionals to assist them. At that time, the town hired a company by the name of Sebago Technics, who provided a lot of drawings. They also did a layout of a building of about just under 8,000 square feet, based on some parameters that were provided to them. And then after a while, it appeared to me that the committee sort of, either the momentum went away or it just sort of died off. When I got here in, I think it's 2015, when I got here, we resurrected the committee. The selectmen wanted to try to get going, and our first focus was obviously on the land. Now that we've secured the land, at that time when we were doing that, we also hired Sebago Technics to provide a perimeter survey, detailed survey of the property, which we already have. They did a soils analysis for us, did borings through SW Cole. We have that information, data. So I think we have some, not a full concept, but we've got some materials that I think we can grab a hold of and use and utilize to assist you folks as we go through looking at the building and those kinds of things. The agenda that I sent you and the background information on the back, I made some assumptions based on some of the conversations I had with the board. And some of those assumptions were where the building was going to be placed, their need for providing access all the way to the rear of the facility for Arundel Conservation Trust, that we really wanted to see the parking in the rear of the building. We didn't believe that the parking had to be all pavement, that we needed to have certain paved spots, but the rest of it could be environmentally friendly type of parking. within the facility. I had a vision that the facility needed to be rural in character to this community. It needed to be designed in such a way that it didn't really look like a commercial building. It was a commercial building for our needs, but it blended into the community and the neighborhood that it's going to be in. Those were the things that I thought, that I saw, that we needed to do. The plan that Sebago Technic came up with, I think there's square footage there, and there's some sort of need, but I really don't like the look of the building. So I think I see you determining size and determining what this building's really gonna look like in the exterior. And then once we get that done, then we can really start to nail in what we have inside for our needs.
You've got to design
Otherwise-
this thing from the inside out, not the outside in.
See, I don't know enough about it, so
I
I
agree completely.
Was anyone
What was
around?
that? I didn't hear that comment. What did you say?
And you've got to design this thing from the inside out, not the outside in.
Ah, okay,
Okay.
okay.
No, was anyone around when those were designed, like here today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were? Oh, you guys were?
Yeah.
So you like?
I mean, we've got a design that looks like a municipal building.
Because as far as I come into it, I
I see
mean,
it.
you guys want town hall,
It was
so I
never
said,
really-
I'll go see
It
what
was
you guys
never
got.
really
Yeah.
finished, it was just a quick design, that was it, nobody
Yeah.
played
Probably
with
like-
it, nobody agreed with
Kind of
the
template.
interior.
Kind of template, like here's
I mean, I
a
don't even
municipal
feel like I
building,
was
and
saying
this
this.
is like
That's
what it
just
looks
the
like.
starting point.
That's the floor plan.
Yeah, really had some.
Does anyone want to see it?
Yeah.
No, this is the survey.
Yes, it does look like a commercial building.
Yeah, it does.
Bigger than others.
Yeah.
When we did this, we didn't tell Sebago Technic, this is what we want. We just say, listen, we're looking at a municipal building, give us some rough ideas.
Fair enough.
Right.
Now, what was the cost on this building?
I
I
they,
hate to say that bluntly. but-
well, what they did is when I looked at the data, they were at $185 a square foot when they did the estimate for the building. And that was, what, 9 years ago?
That was expensive for 9 years ago.
So you work with a list, like wish list, because this can mean so many things.
That's what I'm trying to get to, like where, like we got to this building.
Needs, there'll be all kinds of different social activities in there, and
Well, that's what I'm wondering with the meeting space, like, you know, like what do we, and I think that's it. It's like, what do we envision, like, the meeting space to be used for? I mean, voting, definitely voting.
town meeting.
I mean, town meetings,
See, my
do we
concern with that-
envision it for town meetings?
With
or
that
just-
design, when we looked at it, the storage is terrible, the layout is bad, it's like, one office is here, the vault is someplace away from the clerk, the manager's office is behind the clerk's office, which if somebody wanted to see him in private, would have to walk through the whole office to get to the manager.
Right.
There's no storage for, because like, I think you do have to put in a lot as far as, all the voting equipment, the voting booths and everything have to be put away while you're having regular meetings, and when you're having elections, all of those meeting tables and chairs have to be put away, so this, there needs to be a lot of storage in the meeting area.
So one of my questions is, as we're just kind of batting things around, is,
Just under 8,000.
does this have most of the office space, not talking storage, most of the offices that are needed?
Not the layout.
Because
just
at least it's a working
the
list
space.
that you can come off of and say, we need 6 offices. No.
You have code enforcement and everything, you have 3 people working there, we have assessor, code enforcement, and the building inspector, planner, all in one big room. And, so your town manager is down back there, so you have to walk through the office.
So let's try to
Right,
stick to
so this
one.
is pretty much, from the people that were on the Board of Selectmen, does this seem just like something that we should just trash?
I certainly didn't like the layout.
Not
We didn't
play
like
with,
the
because
layout.
it seems like it's missing an
It
awful
doesn't seem to
lot.
like the
It's
layout.
also got
In their defense, this is preliminary.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
No, no, of course.
Work off
Your
this.
vault
Yes,
is here,
of
which
course.
would have all your records, and your office is here. So you're walking through a copy area to get a birth certificate, or walking through, and,
Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't flow.
So,
Doesn't
you know,
flow.
And it's missing a lot.
Yes.
And it's missing a lot.
So I think to the point that was brought up earlier, we really need a list of you know, what type of offices, what do we need, you know, manager's office, code enforcement's office, planning board's office, clerk's office, I think, you know, obviously we need to list that down. And then all the ancillary stuff, like the vaults and all of that stuff, you know, I think we need to kind of put that together in a list, and then from there, we can determine what size. What we had asked before, is when we had looked at this, we didn't like the layout, so we had asked Keith, and I'm not sure, I think he did a little bit of work, but what's the flow? What's the flow of work? We need to see what the flow of work is when somebody comes in, when Simone has to do her paperwork, when Keith has to. But we can't do that without knowing what all the offices that we need to have in place.
I did develop, just very quickly, a tiny little question, so a series of questions for Keith, which he mostly answered. But I think it's only been to you, hasn't it, Keith?
What's that now?
This set of questions I came up with, it was right off the top of my head when this first came up. But I think they're a good starting point set of questions. And there's a lot of not detail in here. What size requirements for the offices? And I did note that would be a balancing act between individual needs and wishes and budget constraints, which is always going to be the case. But there's the other thing I had on here, how many people are the offices to accommodate? Look like we're going to be 11. In addition to the offices, what other rooms are required in the office part of the building? I suggested a public access area for paying bills, buying licenses, etc. Storage, meeting room, bathrooms, a small kitchen would be really handy, archive and vault, and there may be others too that I missed. I said, should it be a 1 or 2 story building? 2 story means you've got to have an elevator, and that might be worth avoiding. Well, the size requirements. How big should the hall be? You know how much space you need for that, Simone. I'd take your advice on that. Should the hall space be subdividable with a portable wall? How much storage space for voting booths and all the other stuff? How big would the archive and vault space be? How are we going to heat it and ventilate it? How green is it? Do we have solar panels on it? How much can the town afford? That might have been on the top of the list.
That's right, yeah.
And those are, there's a whole lot of other things, but those were at least a starting point. And I think those are the sort of questions we've got to answer before any sketch of a building gets
I think this
done.
is a good rough idea though, you know? What you built here is something that could be, it's such an easy structure and cheap to build, that it could be sized up to what these need to be bigger, offices need to be bigger. This building needs to be wider, this needs to be wider. I mean, this space looks fine, but I mean, as far as making that, it's a really cheap building so far as what I'm looking at.
It is, and it's all designed around actual trusses. And
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is a 2-week build for me to build the house, and you know, a week for the barn.
I'd like to go back to something that you asked earlier, Tom,
It's
and
structure, it's nice.
I think talking about spaces is tremendously important, and I actually agree with everybody, what everybody has said so far. But I think we need to go back to what you asked originally, and that is about who we asked to help us, or how we go about asking for help. I heard some people say that perhaps we didn't need it. I totally disagree with that. I disagree with it for a lot of reasons. But this is a municipal building. This is not a private, experience. Knowing that I'm gonna be part of it, you're gonna be part of it, we're gonna be part of it, I would hope that we would have the expertise of an expert, whether we agree with them or disagree, whether we guide them to what we want them to do, which I hope this group function, but not to have someone that we can hold responsible for the final analysis, the final plan, the final stamp that we need, and because we're municipal, I think would be a little bit risky on our part. So I think this function of this group should be to guide those people. The last thing I want is an architect telling us what we want, right, or an engineer. But I think we need to realize that our skills can only guide that person, and that we would need someone of that caliber as a municipal representative.
I agree with you 100%, but I think there's some incredible cost savings if we
Absolutely.
save that card until we're ready to utilize.
I forgot to tell you I'm cheap, you know, to start with, right? But I agree, I absolutely agree. You
Because
don't
it's gonna
go out
cost
and-
us a fortune to
and
make
give 'em-
changes every time
no.
to call this guy and.
No, but I'm just thinking from a point of view of building something for the public for the next 100 years.
Yeah.
We need some beef behind that.
Yeah,
Keith, I'm not sure of the layout of where this building's actually gonna be. I'm sorry for my ignorance, but where is it physically in the town? Is it across from the fire station?
No, sir, it's not. If you go down Limerick Road, heading down Limerick Road, you come to a long stretch of road.
Yep,
You have the alpaca farm on the right,
yep.
just before the alpaca farm.
Oh, okay, but they cleared out that area then?
Correct.
Okay, okay. What's gonna be the future growth of this town? I mean, what does this town really perceive itself? I mean, we're at what a population now, what, 6,000?
No, we're just over 4,000.
4,000, okay, so we're over 4,000. Is this and we assume the structure's gonna last, what, probably 50 to 75 years?
100 years, 100 plus.
100 plus.
So, okay, so it's 100 plus. So we're talking about an increase of how much per year, and how many more employees that's gonna have to fit. So we have to make sure that this building, because we can't build it that big now, it's silly to build it that big now. But we gotta make sure that this building can be added on to in a modular way, so we can simply just add on, you know, like they did at the school here, they just add it on, it's easy to add on. So we gotta make sure that that is part of the whole layout as well. So if we come up with, I don't know, some type of rough number where we perceive this to be 10 years, how many more employees, 20 years, that type of thing. So when we look at when the offices are here, okay, so we can add 4 more offices back here, or we can add, you know, we have to add on to the meeting room. You know, we're not up against some type of barrier that we can't add on, because we're gonna grow our population to 50,000, who knows? I mean, we got 100, it's not even enough for, you know, a committee meeting. So we gotta make sure of that. If that's gonna be the use of this. Now, again, we got other uses in the town, we got the schools we can use and other resources. So I just wanna see if you can get your kind of thoughts on that, where you see it going.
I think what I can, I think what I can do is that the state planning office has quite a bit of projections and numbers in terms of population changes. That will help us perhaps get to assist us in getting to a size based on what may be happening with our projection of population. The other thing is that we get a pretty good idea of what we're doing in terms of value, and I think that we can correlate the town's overall increase in value to maybe what we're gonna be having for population density as well. So there's a couple of ways that we can look at it. I'll certainly do some legwork on that and report back out to the committee as to what those projections may be. But I think you're spot on in terms of what we build and its ability to be expanded upon in the future to assist us in our future needs. We have 10 acres there. That's what we retained for ourselves, was 10 acres. So we've got some space to work with.
It's not all buildable, is it?
No.
No, it's not. That's the other challenge that we're gonna have, obviously.
Is some wetland there? Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it's wet.
Otherwise
Is it
called,
wet?
Yes.
otherwise called a pond.
Okay. So we're gonna do the cranberry business.
So can I take this back to Jack's point? I believe it's Jack.
Yeah.
I fully agree that eventually we need to have engineers and architects involved in this plan. I would never want to try to spec this out. And I don't think you'd want to spec this out. I don't think anyone here wants to do that. However, I think what Jason was saying is correct. We can save a bunch of money for this town by working through a lot of these details as the committee with the expertise we have. And then when we get to something basic where we feel ready to present it to an architect, engineer for an RFP, we will then have some basics down, our needs down, and say, what can you provide for us?
And the town doesn't have anybody on retainer now, like, as far as, like, when they did the school or anybody else, any of these architects that do all the work in the town type of thing?
No, sir.
By doing it that way too, the architects will know this is what we want as a town.
Yep.
Not what he thinks we should have.
From the
This is
last
what-
town hall he
Yeah.
designed.
This is what we
You know what I
want.
mean?
It's not gonna be like the town hall and
Yeah.
whatever other town.
That
This
has
is for
20,000
Arundel,
people.
this is ours.
So, which means
So what we want, not what the architect thinks we want.
I think our first task should be deciding what we want, and then we have to be clear, because you're right, once you bring an outside group, if we don't know what we want, we're gonna be just following them around and around, so it's best for us to really, there's a lot of decisions to make. I think if, I hear 11 employees in the offices, and we have to decide, do we wanna build to that many, or factor in maybe a little bit of growth in the next, we don't wanna be adding in 5 years from now, so there's all decisions at the meeting rooms. You know, this is where most meetings are held in town now, in this room, but the town doesn't really own this building. So it'd be nice to have a space like that, meeting spaces.
Would a good focus today, and I think, sorry, I'm horrible with names, but the set of questions, a good focus today would maybe be to come with, what do we need, a set of questions maybe by the end of today, and I think those guided questions would be great to apply to the 9 employees that we have, and ask them, especially, like, I mean, Simone would be a wealth of information, like, she knows how big the voting machines are, and maybe they're a little different in the future, but we know that type of stuff, like, what do the employees feel like we need through a set of guided questions. I think that's important, and maybe that's what today could be about, is getting to questions what we need to answer, and then because and I do agree, like, again, in the end, I think this goes out to a professional, not just this committee.
Let me ask, as a dumb lawyer, how are we gonna get that information that you guys are talking about without getting a professional involved? Walking around the office with the town employees and saying, what do you need?
Well,
And then
I'll do that if you like.
Yeah,
Oh,
and someone's gonna do it.
I think we need something.
A subcommittee to do that.
Yeah.
Full of people that go
Can
with
do that.
Simone and say,
I need a,
this is what we got now, this is what we need.
Yeah,
Talk
that
to
was my
Keith, talk
idea
to the
from
code
the beginning.
enforcement
You need to know what they
officers.
want. I mean, we could sit here as a bunch of guys and say, hey, we could make this and put urinals in every room and whatever you want, though. I mean,
One of the
no
things,
women here.
one of the things you may wanna do is expand that, not just to yourself, though. I mean, in all due respect to Simone and everybody else who works there, who are friends, there are other town offices that have explored different approaches to their own functions. And it would be, probably behoove us to make sure that we not only look at what we need, but look at maybe a few other similar sized communities that have new facilities, so we can see what they added to their list or subtracted, or the mistakes that they made or whatever.
Like Dayton would be a good example, right? You go to Dayton and you say, you know, if you guys had to do it again, what would you do different? What would you add? What would you take away? So it'd be nice to put that list together.
Actually, we went to Dayton, and the first thing they said was their meeting room was too small. They
Yeah,
should have
Yeah,
one
we
bigger.
know that
Yeah,
anyway, right?
you know.
a low
and,
fire station.
Yeah.
Buxton
We could get
Buxton
some-
isn't bad. I've been to Buxton, and they're got a new facility, and that one's pretty interesting to visit.
But the key is to get that information and put it down, write it down.
Get Simone's info as a baseline.
Absolutely.
Can't we just get their plans?
We do
We
have
have,
the Dayton.
we have Dayton's plans. We can get Buxton's plans, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
To at least have some,
Right, use Simone and her crew as a baseline, and then work on it from there. Well, you know, we think, well, could this be a little bit bigger, or could this be in a different location, or get a baseline from them as to what they need.
I like the idea of asking in those new town halls, what would they wish was different?
What went right?
What went right, what do they
What went right, what went wrong.
Lessons learned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
And
we
again,
only have one shot at it.
Somebody's like write a list of questions, and we ask them all the same thing, we're gonna get crazy when we go there and ask, get off on different subjects. Someone should make a set list of what we need for info.
Can't we just email it to them? Can
That's
we
what I said too,
just-
email at the beginning and then
Well,
if
we'll
it
just
doesn't
email
work
it to the
out,
town,
then-
to the town manager at Buxton and Tate
Yeah,
with a couple questions, have them circulate it, and then we can have it back here at the meeting.
yeah.
You know, we don't have to go out and do a site visit, I wouldn't think.
Dayton
Unless
doesn't
you
have
really
a town
have
manager. Dayton doesn't have a town manager.
Oh, okay, well,
And I don't think Buxton does either.
there's gotta be somebody there who can answer
Right,
questions.
we gotta go to the selectmen probably, or
Planning
yeah,
or-
the clerk, yeah.
Yeah, they got somebody there.
That would be
Someone
face
to
to
send an
face.
email.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering whether somebody has, Jack is talking about some subcommittees, maybe we need a subcommittee to undertake to make the appointment and go out
Yeah.
and see these facilities and.
Come up with a questionnaire for an email to send out to people, that would be good.
So,
I mean, because you don't know, you can send an email, you know, who knows if you get a response. I
Could they
mean,
be
they're
invited
busy people, you know,
to come down here
what's
with their
that?
plans?
Yeah, if they
With
will.
the town clerk or whoever we have to get involved in the Dayton? Could we invite them to come down to a meeting with the plans of their
Good idea.
building and talk with them here?
Invite them, I'm not sure that they would accept the invitation, that's, I think we gotta go to them.
Yeah, go to them.
Yeah.
Send them an email to
We need
just
to go there.
set the, you know, the flyer out there.
I'm
If we
I'm
have
gonna
to,
make
if we
the
have to
point
go
too,
there, we go
that
there.
this committee's lacking something, and that's a female.
Oh, I know it.
Half,
Well,
half
Velma's
this
not here.
building is.
Oh, Velma should be here.
That's what I
Phil,
said, we need to know.
Velma will be here the next time.
Yeah,
That's
I'll make
just
sure
one.
of that.
I think we could use perhaps more.
Absolutely.
All I know is whatever we say is gonna be the exact opposite of what they want, so, I mean, maybe we should ask.
That's a cynic.
I'm married, so, I mean, I know better.
I'm trying to avoid that.
I'm not sure I support that.
I think one of the comments that was made, and I'm not sure if Steve would be willing to do this, but we talked about the needs and walking and going into the office and asking. I don't know if it's something that you would be willing
I would
to
be quite happy to.
go into the town hall today, go talk to Simone, go talk to Tad, go talk to,
You got Wendy, you got
Wendy,
Lisa.
Wendy and all of them.
Yep,
Put together a list of what their needs are, what they think that they need for a space, and that, at least we get some ball rolling here, and we have some information at that point that we can combine and convert it into something like
That's
that.
the first
And
step.
I think that is the first step.
That is-
Yeah.
They have a good idea, like Simone just pointed out, like the town clerk's office needs to be connected to the vault. Like, again,
Right.
those are very important things beyond just like space and stuff like that. It's also a little layout, and they probably have a good idea of workflow, much better than any of us would know.
Yep.
I still feel like we need an end game. Like, we
Town
need
hall.
to have like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know it's the town hall, but when I go into a big job, you need a deadline. It makes you push, it makes you go harder, makes you work harder, makes everything go better. If you ask me, but I mean,
I
if you
think
want
it's
to
too
just,
early for an end game.
yeah, but I mean, is it like 2022, 2025? I mean, it doesn't have to be next year.
I think by the end of this month, we
Have
should
an idea
be in a
of
better
some sort of,
position.
alright, I mean, it's,
project that.
well, cause I know you guys have been talking about it since 2009, so that's why.
Before that.
Like, was there an end game when you came up with those plans? Was there like anything?
But we didn't have land back then.
Okay, it was a matter of
It
finding
took us a
somewhere
while
to do
find
it.
land. From my perspective, I would like to present something to the voters in the fall.
Okay, well, that's my,
That's my
that's what,
perspective.
like, if someone has
I
to
mean, that
push
would be
harder, if I
my
have to do more work,
wish.
someone needs to say, hey,
It's
we
a
need to
wish.
do this
I'll
by,
make a motion
you
that
know what I mean? Hard work.
Steve,
Yeah.
that you and would anybody else like to go along with it, to go and talk to Simone and,
I'll go.
okay.
I'll go.
I'll make,
I can say no,
I'll make the
but
motion
I'm
that
tired.
So you're making a motion to form like a subcommittee?
subcommittee to go to talk to Simone and.
Make a spec sheet?
Yep.
Not just Simone, but all of the employees in
Yeah.
town hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Call it a questionnaire for them,
Yeah.
for what we want, wants and needs.
Will you present them with some questions?
Well,
or you
I
gonna-
would come up with
Yeah.
some, otherwise it will get
Yeah.
unstructured.
So,
So,
come up with
so I need to know, I mean, some of them are there, but there's other things I haven't thought of, like the flow to the archive and things like that. So, I know Wendy said, for example, to me just in passing at some point, she really needs a separate adjacent room that she can meet people for social services and things. And with that, unless you know that, you don't know.
Right.
Yeah, we need everyone's input
Yeah.
with your question.
That's
You can
right.
come up with basics.
And just just how much space does the code enforcement officer really need? For
A lot.
A lot.
A lot.
Exactly, because he needs a giant table.
It needs 3 tables.
I performed this exact task,
Yeah.
about 18 years ago in Acton, Massachusetts. Not for the whole town, but just for a group of people in town hall. And it's a very useful process.
Well, it clarifies the mind, because you know what the target is.
And the
we
key
are
is to have
objective.
good questions, well thought out, and everybody needs to answer them to the best of their ability, and get it all written down, and then summarized.
Is that something we want to approach now? Because we have another hour, we've been here an hour, we were trying to keep it 2 hours, is try to just throw out questions and make a basic outline of what that is, or is?
Let's, before we get there, I mean, Bob's got a, he's put a motion out there to form a
Second.
subcommittee, so we need to address that, we've got a second on that now. Is it gonna be just Steve, or are we talking about Steve, Rich, and?
I'll volunteer. Right?
Yeah, the three of us.
The three of you?
Yeah,
Okay, that's part of your motion.
Yeah, I just work at home during the day, so if my boss is really liberal, I just tell him I'm leaving and just kinda lets me go.
Okay.
We're gonna get a
Usually
starting
not a
point,
big
so
deal.
we don't do it.
Yep, I hear you. I hear you. Okay,
Boyd's good.
Anybody further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? Okay, you guys are a subcommittee formed. Now,
Thank you.
Now, is their purpose just to go to our town, or are they, for now?
for now, I think you can find yourselves to what the needs that you can identify.
But I do, but again, I did like that idea of additional town halls, especially newer ones.
Yeah, once we stir up an email, then we send out the
I was
email.
reading down and failing to see your name, that's why.
I think so.
Yeah.
So find out if there's, what other similar sized towns have had new town halls, other than a few that may not have a town manager, it might be a little different than our needs.
I mean, you can even go a little bigger, we don't have to go the
Yeah.
exact same size, because we're gonna grow a Arundel, I mean,
Right.
at some point, we're gonna get
Like
10,000
Wells or
people in this
yeah.
town, in my lifetime. So, I'd like to see it be big enough to handle that many people, not just what we're doing right now. I mean,
Should we?
I plan on living here for another 50 years, so 60
Another
years,
approach
so.
to getting to that data is one that was, again, in the town I used to live in, was to look at all the properties and identify those that are residential, buildable, and project out
Mm.
the population based on, whatever it is, 2.3 people per household.
Now, realistically, can Arundel really be built
Look
out?
out 30 years.
Doesn't have the
You
infrastructure.
get
I don't think it doesn't have infrastructure, and the people who hold the land, hold the land.
Getting to build out, if you will, based on the existing land use, assuming no changes.
We get a lot of the data from the state planning office, and,
We get cohort survivals, right,
Sure.
through them?
We do have,
But they
caps.
don't project ahead for build out.
no.
But that's what you're saying, like, how much buildable land is there really gonna be over the next
Well,
10 years?
You know right now.
there are caps on building permits per year, and that kind of will.
Well, that's a factor as well,
Yeah.
yes.
It's
There
34,
was
isn't
a-
it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it went up.
There's never
We
been.
haven't reached it.
No.
There's not enough land.
On that,
You can get land.
on that committee, would
Can't.
two weeks be enough? 2 weeks, do you think? Or do you need more time, do you think?
No, I think that we can do that in 2 weeks.
Couple of weeks?
I think so.
I think, as the committee, is organized and wants to come visit, just give me a day or two of heads up so I can advise the employees that you folks will be coming by. I don't want you strangers to come walking in this.
That's
So we'll give them a heads up of who's coming, and obviously I'll be along and provide introductions as much as I have to, and then we get along and do your work, so.
It might be better too to email Keith the list of questions prior to you going.
Well, I think that's what we're gonna discuss right now, is what we're gonna put on it as much as we can.
But instead of just going there with the questionnaire, maybe give the girls.
Oh,
a
yeah,
couple
for like,
days ahead of
oh, yeah,
time.
in advance,
Good
yeah.
idea. It's a good idea. Some people aren't there all day.
Right, maybe they'll
This
just
is
email
what
you
we're gonna
back.
discuss with you.
Yeah.
You know.
Instead of tying up all the girls for an
Yeah.
hour or something, you know.
Most likely they'll just email you back the next
What's the
day.
busiest day of the month there? Is it like the first or the end, or do they have like a?
Yeah, yesterday and the last, the tax due dates were, busy this week.
Yeah.
But usually beginning and end of the month, middle of the month is better. So next week would be, I think,
Okay.
we're closed on Monday, but Tuesday, Wednesday wouldn't be too bad, I
Yep,
don't
I think so. Tuesday and Wednesday would be good days to go.
Probably a whole day there? Probably a whole day?
Well, no, I think that might be too disruptive to the staff. I would have thought
Just a couple hours?
short, maybe 2 or 3 short sessions would be better than going over length.
Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah. I think that would probably work the best, yeah. If maybe you can give us some thought as to where you wanna start. And then just,
Sat right there.
okay, start with the main office, the clerks. Yeah.
Well, that's the public face of the building to a
Correct.
large extent.
Yeah.
I think that's-
And you already have some ideas about that as far as the.
I do, I have some of my own,
Yeah.
thoughts of how it should be laid out, but I'll share those at another time, I guess.
Well, and I think, and again, sharing them with the staff ahead of time lets them think about what we're looking for, so they can, so it's not just, oh, here's some
Yeah.
questions, so they can think about it themselves for a day or two,
Yeah,
at least.
That's a good idea.
I think the other thing that is crucial about this is we've not only got to have buy-in, and eventually the population have the buy-in, but the town employees absolutely have to have buy-in to this building, or we're setting ourselves a huge trap.
Yeah.
That's really important.
They're the important people in this
Yeah,
whole thing,
yeah,
not
yeah.
us. I don't have to
So
work.
with that, and it'd be nice if you guys get at least a summary together of what you found, get it to everyone on this committee before our next meeting, so you have an opportunity to digest what findings you came to. Would be helpful, I think.
Yeah.
Rob, you wanted to talk about questions, right? I mean,
Well, yeah, we could talk about listing out some questions, but maybe before we even get to that, does anyone feel like there's something else that we should like put on the table, form another subcommittee or something to address something else? Well, this is happening, so we're not all waiting for 3 people to go and figure out specs
That's a
of the
good point. I
building.
mean, we already touched upon it about the other town halls. Why does another subcommittee start getting that together, because that could be independent?
Sure.
We get that together, and now we have it coming from both ends, so yeah, that's, outside of that, I don't know what else we really need to start on the ground floor, but.
I don't know if we need a subcommittee for it, but I think a site walk over, where this is gonna be built might be good to get a feel for what 10 acres are, that are
buildable.
designated for what's buildable, what's designated for the town hall, how that's gonna tie in with the.
Have we got from Sebago Techniques an actual envelope where we can do this thing?
yes.
So maybe I had that.
Yeah, we have a survey, and we've got building envelopes that are on it.
Well, it would be really handy to have that spelled out on the site.
Do you have that
So we
in
could see it.
PDF?
Yeah.
I think I do have it in PDF. If not, I know Sebago Technics will send it to me.
That would be great to have that on a PDF,
Yeah.
it really would be,
But
so,
yeah.
so we all can look at it, and, because once we get, like someone said here, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and it really is when we understand what we have to build with. Is it just one building parcel, or is it several building parcels, or is it, how's it laid out?
It's one parcel.
Keith,
one
is
parcel.
it staked? Is it staked out?
The building envelope?
Yeah.
It's not staked out.
Would that be a hard job to do?
But is that the only building envelope that's available on that site, or is that just the one they proposed for?
There was a proposal that was made, their first proposal had the building back a little further. The selectmen wanted the building closer to the road to give it a little more exposure to the public and allow the parking to go to the rear of the building. So the only change was we meet the 75-foot front setback.
Yeah.
And then just go from there.
There's
And
a
the wetland
very,
setbacks.
there's a
There's
very
several
faint
wetland
patch,
setbacks.
just in from the road, I was wondering
It's
how
almost
that's
gonna be a
fenced.
given where this building sits.
Absolutely.
Between the
Call
road
it a
access to
bridge.
the back, the
Build a
leach
bridge.
bed setback, I mean, this
No.
building's almost just gonna set itself.
Now, is it worth though leaving like some
much
space
choices
in the
is there?
front, like for parking potentially over time if we have to take parking out of the back to build addition onto it?
That's a good possibility.
what I run into when I'm building is whenever I have to do an addition, I have to take something out. I can't just keep adding on and keep adding on and keep adding on. I have to remove a driveway to put in a deck, or I have to remove something, you know, it's all about space management. So maybe we plan, you know, some space in front, even though it's gonna look like lawn for the first 10 years. You know, that maybe that could just be parking eventually, and then you could add it back.
Well, we ought to
Good food
plan
for
on
thought.
going up and taking a look at the lot, maybe with a couple of 100-foot tapes and some stakes. We could stake it out pretty close.
So we have the, for the town hall, there's the front 10 acres, but then there's, what is it? 30 something in the
Yeah,
back.
plus or minus, yeah.
The Arundel Conservation Trust, you know, they're gonna be doing all kinds of trails, and I think that there's been an agreement, that there's gonna be public bathrooms. I'm not sure if it's an agreement, but I heard I
Yes,
read
there
something
is.
about that.
10 acres isn't really that much for this.
So just, well, I'm just thinking about
Inside
also
the-
taking into consideration.
The public restrooms would be the same building or would be a separate?
That's to be discussed.
That's to be discussed. by
So,
the-
so I'm thinking that, you know, this is another facet of this whole project that we need to keep in mind as we're,
Oh, yeah?
you know, looking at all this stuff.
What
I
would
gotta
be
throw
the
that
problem
in.
with having, at the start of the meeting, we're gonna meet again next week? Then why don't we all meet down on the lawn?
Still be some.
Still be out, yeah, then we can run back up here afterwards, it's all just down the road here a little ways, so.
Yeah.
Meet there.
Right,
I
Keith,
won't be
can
able
I
to
just
make
stake
next
it out
week.
roughly?
1 week I can't.
Sure. So I could do that, could he?
Just if we're waiting for 2 weeks anyway, maybe we wait till 2 weeks and we.
Okay, yeah,
do that,
okay.
And then
Yeah,
everybody
we'll
can
have-
be here.
Okay,
Next
let's
meeting,
do it 2
next
weeks.
meeting,
The next meeting
So
will
we
be
can
2
have
weeks.
everybody here.
Jason said there's not, there's very little flexibility, right? I mean, there's very, the
No, it's
footprint.
gonna go where.
The envelope isn't
It's
very
very,
big where
right,
this
we're not
house, where this
talking,
is going.
oh, over here,
Yeah.
basically right there.
That way, everybody's gonna stand in and gonna see what we got.
Yep.
To start with. How much-
But that's gonna dictate size of the building too.
Yeah.
Got setbacks from wetlands we gotta deal with.
You can fill them.
Trust somebody.
Fill a lot.
I know we might have
Running by.
What's that?
Fill is so important, whatever we can fill it.
High enough, we got the water.
Definitely doable.
But the wetlands that are affected.
Couldn't we just take Mount Arundel from over on Route 1 and move it over there?
Yeah.
Then you see the tree line.
All right,
So we wanna make it the 2 weeks from tonight that we meet at
We'll
the
meet there, we'll meet at that.
We'll meet at
site.
That was
site
fine.
down here,
Yeah.
That's good.
2 weeks,
Yeah.
2 weeks.
We'll have about an hour there. There, or like,
Has a full wetland survey been done of this property?
Yeah, that's all.
So there's no wetlands of special significance there?
I didn't see
I,
anything.
no, I didn't see anything, but I think we'll get the planner involved early on in this process, probably the next meeting. And again, take a look at the survey that we have, and if we have any questions, we get those addressed early on. I think it's important to, I don't wanna have it the 12th hour to somebody say, well, you know, we can't do that.
Should be on there too.
Yeah, most of the wetlands are on the other piece of the property. Our 10 acres doesn't have very much wetlands.
So there's plenty of workable land out there and.
Good deal, I mean, 10 acres, is that right, John?
You've got that big field right there.
Yeah.
That's a big field. So, to Jason's point, when you look at it, the side of the property that we want, I said, really only one spot for that. You only pledge it a little bit. Right away for the.
Okay, folks, where do we wanna go from here?
We've got a disconnect.
Rich has some suggestions that we may wanna form another committee to
start getting the plans together for the,
some
date,
investigation.
and probably communicate with them to, for a site visit as well.
We had the blueprints from Dayton.
Lyman.
Yeah, we do
Lyman
have.
would be a good site visit, because they have a building today that's not all that old, and they're already moving to a bigger building.
They want to.
I'm.
They want to.
Lyman, that's the town I live next to.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember.
I said that.
Did you? I didn't hear you.
They want to move to a new
forget
one,
the name
my
of that
parents
town.
live there. They didn't realize how expensive it would be to renovate that school building. They had to go
Their
back on more
building
money.
is decent size, and they don't have a home.
We don't wanna make that mistake.
Lyman is very small, I went to visit it, and all of their voting booths and their voting equipment is out in the middle of their meeting room against the walls, and the selectmen meet in the middle, because they didn't have the storage place, so they don't have anything. Buxton though is, you'd be interested, I think I've been there and I really was impressed with the town hall in Buxton.
Does anybody have an interest in serving on this subject? Have the time to do it?
I could probably jump on.
I'll work with Jay.
I don't think it'll take much time.
Okay.
Because you're not gonna be able to take too much of their time up.
No.
No, so it's like a.
I'd be happy to work
You-
with
you
you.
could-
Yeah, just send out a couple emails, get the plans.
Yeah,
and
I
then-
would imagine between Keith and Simone, you get contacts from,
I make a
Some of the
suggestion
folk
that
down
Keith
there.
go with that group,
A man, and he's very knowledgeable, the town clerk
So
of
that
Buxton is a
manager.
we have
give you
a
a tour.
employee that goes to those other sites as well as committee members.
It's a good thought.
Would you be planning on visiting or just calling and?
Well, I think initially we could probably get plans emailed to us,
Yeah,
take a look at them, and then set up a meeting.
We probably wanna formulate some questions off of those plans.
yeah.
Maybe talk to Simone about it too.
So what you would really like to have me tasked at, in that regard, would be to find out the communities that may have just built or recently or are thinking of building, to, if they have plans, to provide the plans to us. I'll think out to see, you know, as we get off the coast, there may be other communities, or further north, there may be other communities that have built too, so,
And communities are obviously
I'll
a
research
similar
that as well.
size,
Yes.
because obviously we don't wanna go to like Scarborough.
right.
Sure, Parsons Field, they're pretty nice.
Very small.
Keith, I'll research that too at my end, because I should have all the old buildings in my database.
Oh, okay.
I should have them. I should have something, yeah.
I got a sense there'll be a lot of emails coming my way, and me back and forth here while we get this thing settled up.
Town hall buildings, state of Maine, it's easy.
yeah, maybe, I think Naples did something not too long ago also.
Yep, I can get all that information, yeah, because it's all public, those are all public projects, so we'd have access to them.
So-
Be public records.
Yep, I'll have access, I'll be architects, engineers, plans, specs, I should have all that. I'll check Buxton too.
You already will have
We're
that.
not deep.
Yep.
Okay, so
So we can check that off, and you'll get those plans.
If they're available, we keep them in our database, I think up to 3 years after completed. I think it's 3 years, and then they get purged.
So will you just forward those on to the whole committee, or at least the subcommittee of Jason and I?
Yeah, I'll send them over to Keith, and Keith can take it from there, okay?
Okay.
Because you'll see what's available, what you think is relevant to go out to everybody.
Okay.
And what isn't. I may send you stuff that, you know, just totally isn't relevant. But, yeah, that's an easy thing for me to do.
All right, so when we have a motion then to appoint Rob and Jason as this committee.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor of that? Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. Some discussions about, Steve's got questions already, I guess, with the.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it's open, that they cover everything that's needed, or,
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we need to like base some questions around what females want
well, that's,
in retrospect to this building.
well, I think that most of, downstairs,
It's all females,
it's a mostly female
Is
oriented.
it Keith and Jim?
Yeah, I think you can almost keep this very simple.
Yeah, I
The
think
first
so.
group of questions could literally be like
What do you need?
quantity of offices and maybe size of offices.
Yes.
What are
And
you
you could-
lacking?
You could start there, and I think the answers to those two questions would almost depict
What you need?
the size of the main building, you know?
Yeah, storage.
Maybe the flow,
The
which rooms
equipment,
need to be near other rooms.
Yeah.
They're gonna have so much more information on this than we are. They work in there every day.
Yeah,
Like
I
asking
don't
me
think we
what
should
tools I
overthink
need in
this.
my trailer and what I don't
confuse
have.
ourselves.
Get there,
You know what I mean? Like, I can tell you right off the top of my head.
I guarantee you
missing?
someone's been thinking about this for a long
Ah.
time.
So,
Your phone numbers.
But that,
I don't think I have phone numbers, but I'll reach out to everybody.
it's so, think it's not just the workers and what their needs are, though, that's the most important thing, but it's also, a couple of you were mentioning, like, the voting booth arrangement. Things like that happen a couple times a year at the most, so we have to think that, what are all those other needs? The Boy Scouts want to meet in there, or
Yeah.
other.
So maybe we put a question
That
that
actually
actually was
was
something I was thinking about. Do we reach out to groups in the community if we are thinking of having a meeting space and intending it for town use? Do we, again, that's one of the uses of like, that may inform us of the meeting space, how big of a meeting space.
how
we
many
have.
more votes are gonna go out beforehand? I think you could put something on like a vote. Maybe
let's get the basics.
public
down.
knowledge.
Yeah, and then go from there, that's stuff that we can go after, get the basic
I
design.
mean, the bathroom sizes are gonna,
Right, exactly.
they're gonna be, we gotta meet
They know
ADA
what
standards
we're doing.
anyway, so I wouldn't even, honestly, I wouldn't even think about that.
No.
It doesn't matter about the bathrooms.
And I would think we should work to, it'll be published next week, the new International Building Codes stuff. I think we should work to that, because that's the best we've got, that's the most
ADA
up to date. ADA is fairly easy if we keep it single story.
Yeah.
Because you control bathroom sizes.
Doesn't affect your footprint. Anything will be better than what we have, that's for sure.
So that is certainly
I mean, the basics down, and then
Right, the basics
jump
down,
into this other
go,
stuff.
go talk to the office staff, go see what they need, and then, you know, we kind of put that together. When it comes to the meeting space, I think that's a separate issue. Obviously, the selectmen, you know, will have some ideas, the planning board will probably have some ideas, and we can work at that stuff,
You're
you know,
gonna
later
need some
about
building
it.
use policies
Yeah,
Yeah.
that at least you gotta be thinking about to answer the questions of the people in the audience about the use of the building. You can't, you know, what if the scouts say, are we gonna be able to use it? You gotta be able to have some indication of how to answer that, you know. I mean, that's down the road, but you're right, you know.
I think we need to think beyond the building too, in terms of what are the needs of the community, recreation needs.
Yeah, could there be outdoor uses for it?
In particular, and may not happen day one, but
Yeah, but like we do the same thing.
lay it out such that if you're gonna have a playground, if you're gonna have, maybe not a basketball court, but maybe, or whatever, a small youth soccer field, might be in wetlands.
Something that
But
we,
nevertheless, if you look at out 10, 20, 30 years, we're not gonna have any more kids, for sure, most of us. But there will be new families moving in, and we need to think about their needs in planning all of this.
You gotta think about people moving, will they even move here if they have you have better facilities? You've got a playground at the town hall, you've got that stuff to offer, you might get more people that wanna come here. Be real about it.
That needs to be part of our long-term thinking.
so,
And there's all the more reason to, as Joe said, to go out to the public and ask them what
Do
they
they
think.
want,
A survey is a great way to build support. for the effort.
Don't we have the monthly that we send out, the letter? Is it quarterly? Quarterly?
Occasionally.
Oh, is it occasionally? I didn't know the frequency of it, sorry.
You
Yeah,
could
it
put
used to
something like
be
on
every
a
other
vote or
month,
something,
now
so
it's
everybody
kinda,
sees
you
it.
know,
if we do a straw poll for
Yeah.
the June.
But the papers that come out every week,
No, I'm
we
gonna
could
straw
put
poll.
something.
Yeah, just something to see what people think.
The little handouts they give out, what's that
Yeah,
called?
you gotta get that
The
info.
post.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can put something in there, right? Probably a post or something,
You know, you
Right,
can produce it, and then and everybody thinks they're
just
gonna
put an
have-
email address to send it.
Yeah, they're gonna have a playground.
We want your, we want
Oh,
your.
yeah, I spilled my water, I
here,
cleaned it up.
Right?
It's very true.
Because ultimately, they're gonna vote for it, and they can't say too much if that's what they want to do.
Too quick.
I think one of the things to with that is to remember, this is actually a public meeting. We could have members of public here. We have one tonight. We do. So, but if the meeting is publicised and structured, then people will have an opportunity to put their word in. Because if you throw things too wide open, you'll just get so many things, you'll bog down and not being able to satisfy stuff.
We get our ducks in a row before we get everybody else.
Yes.
Yeah, something of a product available for the public to see and comment upon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's our first
Yeah.
shot at this, what do you think?
And we'll have to have public hearings, there's no doubt about it, so we'll do that.
Get our ducks, like I said, get our ducks in a row, and then we can get other people to throw in their report.
Okay, does anybody have any additional questions or questions they want to be sure that the subcommittee we just established requires of folks at the town hall?
Have we determined what this group task is? What actually is the responsibility of this group?
This right here?
Yeah.
Ultimately, to present to the community here a plan for a new town hall, a design for it, and a budget for it.
To advise the selectmen?
Right.
The selectmen are the decision makers, am I correct?
Well, the municipalities are ultimately,
Ultimately, it will be the voters, right?
it'll be us
But,
taking it to the voters.
This group's function is to work in harmony with the selectmen, in parallel with the selectmen, advising the selectmen.
To help us out, Jeff.
But
They don't know about that.
Is to present, for this committee to present to the selectmen, a plan for a new town hall in the town of Arundel.
Well, I mean, we're working in concert.
Yeah,
to
and
come
then
up
for the
with a-
selectmen in turn to bring this before the voters of the town.
I think it would be.
Do we have any budget for this?
why?
Yeah.
I ask it because ultimately, I feel in my mind, I know who the final decision makers are, okay? And you talked earlier about collaborativeness and, you know, everybody pulling together, but I'm used to the bottom line in some respect as well. If 7 of us want this building to be painted pink, and we agree that that's what we want, and it conflicts with what the selectmen want, we need to know what this group's role is. Do we simply say to the selectmen, this group, we think this should be a pink building and we understand it's your decision? Or do we continue to work through a resolution amongst all of us to get that resolved? And I guess I'm looking for who's gonna make the decision.
Yeah, does this committee have an overthrow vote on what you guys say?
No.
No.
Okay.
But, as I
There we
said
go.
earlier,
So if you want it pink, then we
I
can.
want to work to get to a point where we have,
We're
we
agreeing.
have to give up on stuff, on some stuff we're gonna have to
Okay.
swallow hard, and you guys may have to swallow hard too.
The final thing is gonna be, we're all gonna sit down, the committee, the board of selectmen, the town.
I want-
planner, we're gonna have to sit down together, and we get the final thing, and this is what we want, that we all gonna decide on.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal.
Collaborative thing.
I'm not angry, or I don't, I mean, I'm good with that, that's great.
Right, yeah.
But I do understand there's responsibilities that come with being a selectman that are certainly different than being an advisory building committee. So I'm trying to find out how those two are going to harmonize together.
One of the things that are going to concern me through this whole process and keeps me up at night already is the cost of this. And so, you know, as we begin to put this building together and the designs and I think we'll have a pretty good idea of maybe where the cost is. And that's gonna be some soul searching for the board to look at in terms of cost and what impact it will have on the community as we go out the next 20 years or so. So I'll keep that in mind, believe me. And
Well, I stayed away from cost, Keith, because, just because I didn't want to get that deep into this, but that's exactly what I was thinking. You get a group of people who are optimistic and enthusiastic, and they want to build, you know, a bigger castle. And when it fits the budget that the selectmen want to incorporate into the operation of the town, it doesn't fit. And someone's gonna have to say, I'm sorry, that castle is, you know, is not gonna make, you know, you're gonna make it, we've gotta do, you know, something different. And I guess, I just wanna make sure we all understand that there's a level of responsibility here somewhere, you know?
It's still, we still have to have this approved by town meeting.
Right.
So, we don't, I think we're learning from the mistake that the Kennebunk High School mistake,
Yeah.
where they had the best high school in the world, but it got voted down because it's so expensive twice. It just, so we need to make it manageable.
I think we will all be able to gauge that, right? I mean, we've been around, we've seen enough of this around that we'll all be able to gauge.
It'll make us look a whole lot better if we get this out, and it said, everybody says, oh, look at the cost, it's not what we thought it was gonna be.
Listen, we're gonna, as Tom mentioned before, there's gonna be some public meetings, right? So we're gonna, you know, put this out and say, look, this committee has come up with this. We projected it's gonna be X amount of square feet, we project it's gonna be this dollar amount, and we'll get the input from the public, and then we'll make our adjustments, you know, from there.
We're all gonna work.
I'll say one of the main reasons I actually came and signed up for this was because I hang out in town, I hang out in the market, I hang out all around town, and I hear all this garf going around, like, oh, someone says the new town hall is going to cost like $1.5 million, some say it's going to cost this and that, and it's like, for me, I build, and you build, I know real life what stuff costs. So I feel like, you know what I mean? Like, someone needs to be like, real life, you build, you know what I mean? These projects can get so out of control so fast with the people that you put involved in these projects. You know what I mean?
Well,
You put one wrong company in this project.
I think we have a responsibility to the taxpayers,
Yeah.
which we are.
We are.
Yeah, I know. So that's why,
Otherwise, we're wasting our time.
Yeah.
In that regard, you know, when these plans were drawn up, Technics, what, 3, 4, 5 years ago, it was $185 a square foot. Today's costs are $230, and by the time we get around to bidding, it's $250. It is what it is.
I know, so it's like...
And by the same token, the selectmen are very cost conscious. I'm one member of the budget board of the town, on this committee, and our group is pretty cost conscious too.
Yeah, I feel like I just wanted to see what we were dealing with, you know what I mean, as a town.
You don't know yet.
I can hear all sorts of stories, but I like to be...
We'll come together.
myself.
We'll come together.
So as far as the question that you asked before about additional, you know, when you're out talking to the other towns, it might be a good idea to get a sense of what they use their town hall for besides just office space. So
Can it be a community center?
exactly.
I think we should,
And
I think we need a community center. I have a
eliminate that.
3-year-old.
I mean,
I don't know where to bring him.
I did want to add that in Arundel, we have a very, extreme lack of space to do much. We have the gym, MLD, and that's about it.
I got a
tough to
3-year-old
get in
and we
there.
go out of town.
It
to do
sure is.
anything.
So and the reason that I'm bringing that, was personal experience, trying to teach karate for Arundel Rec. I was working in the Spanish room, and there were parents who were complaining about how crowded it was in there, which I didn't quite agree with them, but still it was it was like a multiple purpose space. We used it's Spanish during the day, then they had some kind of after school program, and then my program, and they had to move the tables all around, stack them on top of each other, and it was not particularly great. So another thing that I wanted to throw out is that, and I don't know if we want to do this for our town hall, but Kennebunk, they have all kinds of small meeting rooms that they make available to pretty much anybody.
And they rent them out probably, right?
Well, no, they're free.
Oh, they're free?
I've held meetings down
rent 'em
there.
out.
I don't even live in
What?
Kennebunk, and they let me bring and meet with a couple different groups. And I told them what I was doing. I think I probably told them where I live too, and it didn't make any difference to them, which seemed extremely generous to me.
Yeah, that's a
So-
little too
That
generous.
gets to Jack's
Probably.
comment about use
Yeah.
It is.
policy, but that's
Yeah.
down the road, we'll do.
These people coming in, they're gonna use our facility, they're gonna make money, right?
You are exactly right.
Why do we wanna just give that to them?
But to your point, I mean, I think we want to stop.
Yeah, I suppose it depends on if they're-
But still, they're charging
Yes.
people, like in his
We need
case,
to get out
karate
of the
studio,
law. Yeah, have to rely
you know, for
on
something
Yeah.
like that. Now,
Yeah,
if they're
the
coming
space
in
could be-
to do meetings
could
or
be,
anything
you know,
else that's
an
for
open
the
space.
town,
Right.
that's not
Extremely
profit.
versatile.
Right.
That's no
We
problem.
need something.
But anything else that they're making a
That's
profit on, I mean, then we turn that space into,
highly
you know,
configurable.
some revenue coming in.
Flexible.
And that offsets,
up.
you know, future things that we wanna do for the town. It can help at least, you know, instead of just giving it away, you know? Because, you know, as a guy who wants to rent the space, he wants to be central to people that can come here. He doesn't wanna rent it in Biddeford or Kennebunk and have the Arundel people schlep all the way down there. Why not come here? It's local, you're gonna get, you know, more people here, and, you know, we'll give you a good rate on it, cause he is probably an Arundel resident, but still, he's making money on it, let's charge him for it. And then we put that money back in to the, back into the town for future plans, whatever it is. Just a thought. But we did that in our old town in Connecticut with the stage. That's what we did back then, so that's what its purpose was. That's how we got it through to the tax, to the voters too. We said that we were gonna make it, so that you could rent it out to, you know, other places to come in and hold shows there. And that's how we got a much better stage that way, much better stage.
So where are we? Do we want to add, does anybody have any other questions they want the subcommittee to present to the employees of the town? Or maybe just throw out some questions that you think we ought to have, maybe
Maybe
got them all down.
do the town employees want it to be more of a community center? Or do the town employees want it to be just town?
That's a selective
Municipal
decision.
I know it is, but you want their input on everything, don't you? You know what I mean? If they work there every day, they don't want people in and out all day, do they care? You know what I mean? Do you want the community around?
I think it would be, you
Great.
know, if you can use it for like scouts or whatever and stuff, if the room is available, you know, it's like right here, whenever we use this room, we have to pre-schedule it with the school to make sure it's available, so like your PTA meetings or, you know, we
I've done
can
that.
schedule that, so, I mean,
yeah,
town
find
hall-
out if you guys think it's
One of the
be better
purposes
for-
of this building is to be a community center, so we want to be
Yeah.
drawing the community in. We don't
That's
have a
important
center.
to know, though.
We, you know, it's always been a problem here.
Mm.
And that's
We don't
important.
see each other because we don't have a
I
center.
think it's important.
Yeah, I think that's important to the town. I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm looking as like, we don't have a center.
No.
Geographically, we're probably not gonna have a center,
Correct.
but
Or post office,
we could bring, yes, or a post
right?
office.
Oh, you tried that already?
I don't know, dumps worked well.
Dumps used to work real good.
Yeah, don't get my wife involved in that, oh my God, she'd go
Don't
listen.
let down on some of these at the dump.
The post office, you can't understand why we don't have a post office. You know, you go to these little communities that have like 2,000 people, it seems like, and they have a post
I know,
office.
I know.
You know, why don't we have a post office?
All right, what's next?
Well, we were North Haven, we separated for
Anything
life.
else anybody has for right now? So we're scheduled to be 2 weeks from now. Okay, we're gonna meet on site, as I understand it, okay?
2 weeks on site.
And
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock?
Yeah.
And hopefully in the meantime, the subcommittee may have garnered some information. And I don't know whether you guys will have enough time to do that, probably not.
What's that?
Get a look at the other town halls, I mean, that's.
Oh, yeah, we'll be there.
Okay, that's great.
Tom, are we gonna meet on site and then come back here?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, just to make clear. Yeah.
Sooner rather than later.
Okay, does anybody have anything else?
do it, doesn't matter to me.
Any other issues to raise? Okay.
I think that, you know, I didn't, I want to make a quick comment that this is a great start. A lot of ideas flowing, you know, I think it's really good. I just want to make sure that we be cognizant of when somebody else is talking and try not to step on other people's, you know, toes or voices, because there's a lot of things that got thrown around here tonight, and sometimes it's hard to.
I'm gonna make a suggestion, we change the tables.
Yeah,
And
Yeah,
make
not
it,
good.
and,
Yeah.
There's,
yeah.
there's another, I mean,
put the
Square
tables
box.
in somewhat of a square, so
Okay.
that we got 3 conversations.
So I don't know if it would work. I mean, I've had, been in meetings that were really big where you had like a conversation down there and one down here. We ended up having to use a talking piece to actually make it so that one person was speaking and one person was being heard. And that you didn't have multiple conversations and it wasn't clear whose turn it was and that sort of thing.
Let's, before we get there, let's think Jack's
I think
suggestion, see
that's
if we
the-
rearrange these tables,
Yeah.
so we're not,
Let's see how it
people
goes.
down here are talking to people down here or not, maybe we can get away from that.
The school, we can
Again.
raise our hands.
We could do that too.
For now.
Okay.
You go to the bathroom?
Anything else anybody
Never
have?
worked for you in second grade, right?
All the way through, not just second grade.
All the way through, right?
I'd like to say something just
Yes, sir.
quickly. I think there's a real opportunity here to create a really great town hall that encompasses basically what everyone wants here. And that you can do it and keep costs down. And it can be done. As builders, it gets done all the time. And one of the big things for me as we move forward is the interior layout and how that works out, that's fine, it'll get figured out. It's the systems, upkeep, the expense of the building, running expenses of the building. I think these are things that are really, really important to me.
Systems
As-
maintenance and operations.
Yeah, because we don't wanna be every year coming back and adding new expenses on, because we haven't figured it out from the beginning.
Yeah, I'm just reading your shirt, and I know you're into like environmentally friendly, and you do a lot of that stuff. So, like, are we gonna be able to add solar panels? Is that stuff gonna be out of our cost budget?
I
Like,
think it makes
even
sense
though,
to do
like-
it, because,
Well, that's what we need to figure out.
to
Yeah.
save on energy costs.
I feel like you.
Maybe that investment would pay off if you have like a 3 or 4 year payback and then.
Well, the more lead credits
Dayton's a
we
good
can get,
example, right?
better off we're
Dayton's
gonna
got
be
solar
too.
panels,
So,
and we'll
so we
find
just
that out.
focus on the
We
lead
have
credits.
somebody here in town. that
Actually,
does
when we went to
solar
visit
panels. We could
Dayton,
have them come
that
in,
between their
present
solar
something to
panels
us
and
as
their
to how it would
insulation.
work,
Hold on,
what the payback would be. You know, we got the people around us that, like I said, solar panel place down there the road. We could have one of them guys come in and they explain on payback.
Yeah, I'm friends with one of the managers that works there, so. if I
And
talk
Simone,
to him-
Simone,
No,
and
I
Tom,
don't
you can talk a little bit about that.
We went to visit, I think it was with Todd, the Dayton Town Hall, and I think they went geothermal and they did solar panels, but they got grants for some of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ton of money
And
out
I
there
was
for us.
really impressed because between that, I think their monthly cost was like $10 a month because they ran everything off of, between the geothermal and the solar panels, they had to pay to be hooked up to CMP and they had a basic $10 a month
Yeah.
premium, you know. But other than that,
There's no reason
the
why that
insulation
doesn't.
and everything.
Plenty of money
Yeah.
there.
Should
That's
be.
it, that's the number I was looking for, that's zero,
No.
that's the
Can't be
number.
one.
Net zero, this building should be completely self-sufficient.
Now, is that
Yeah, that's
K1 still K1 power, is that?
No.
No, that's Central Maine Power.
Central Maine.
Central Maine.
Oh, yeah, K1.
Another
Chemical
big
power
component
goes
is
down river
technology.
Mm.
You know,
That's right.
right from the,
Can
right
it
from the
come
get-go.
comes up Plymouth Road?
The
That's
company
all
has-
it only
Stop
starts
the
with-
alpaca-thon.
Yeah.
Stops.
We're gonna
Burke
do
County
a
Mills, I think is the last
two more
one.
poles.
What was the last one?
Burke
Is
County
it
is
half
the
the
last
cost
one.
of CMP?
It's not
The time
We
you
definitely
get
want to
much
get off,
technology,
get as cheap as we can,
obviously,
because we can't get chemicals, so we
it's
can get.
liable and that's, stay away from
Get
CMP.
funding On Kennebunk Plains.
Yeah, but if you can
Compare
get grants.
bills, and it's crazy.
So that's when I.
But I think people spend so much time talking about solar panels, and I think, you know, that's one aspect of what you can do, but I mean, I never hear anybody talking about passive solar, which is what, I think, similar to what you're talking about. If you have a well-insulated building with adequate thermal mass, you can store solar energy and, you know, have the operating cost be minimal. Maybe minimal, I'm not sure.
A building that big, you're gonna need multiple systems to benefit
Right.
from it, but.
Oh, one thing that was pretty funny, so I was listening to on NPR a week or two ago, just coming back from being out kind of on the later side, and there was a green building talk, and guy came on, I recognized that voice, it was this guy Peter Ashley, who I think he lives in Kennebunk or Kennebunkport, and came inside, and he left a message. I've never heard from the guy in my life before, but he left a message on my answering machine, you know, starting to talk to me about what you're talking about, you know, basically net zero operating costs. And I haven't called him back yet, because I haven't had a chance, but that was one of the things that I was hoping to kind of throw into the mix. But it sounds like it's pretty well represented here anyway, so.
Yeah, Robbie does a lot of it.
Yeah, we build that way, and one of the things we do is, you can do it if you keep it simple, and you can keep costs down. It doesn't have to be, everyone here is a green building, it doesn't have to be unachievable. You keep it simple,
Yeah.
and it's, you can do it, we do it all
It's
the time.
about how you build it,
You can
you
do
know.
for a commercial building, like, it's a commercial building, you could do something like a CIF out of walls, which would solve those fire problems right off the bat.
There's lots of systems, and I think once we get a design kind of closer, then people can start leaning in, do a subcommittee that really looks at, you know, what kind of systems you wanna put in here, for whether it's insulation, or what is utility, whatever it is.
That's exciting.
And you'll be able to do a cost benefit analysis on all of them, and then really decide with an architect and an engineer on heat calcs, like, what's the best system, what's the most efficient?
You have one of those modern products.
Someone said Dayton got grants, so that might be a good thing to ask them about, like where those grants came from, were they federal, state?
Yep, Efficiency Main pretty much is
Yeah,
the
is it?
hub to it, yeah.
They will help, because I know they do, yeah, I mean, they do provide some for the homeowner, but
Mhm.
other states are much more generous than Maine is.
They don't, all the road folks have.
Who's the other look into that?
Before we split up, I'd just like to throw a couple of this
Maybe one or two. Company out in California.
So, one of the things that I noticed, and it's actually been sort of a pet peeve of mine, I guess, was how unprepared we are as a town for emergencies. And particularly like, you know, the town, as far as I could tell, the town government had to shut down with that four-day power outage that we had for a day.
Yeah.
And then we didn't, from what I understand, we didn't really have any kind of generator that was, they had to run a line from, well, maybe not in this past situation, but I know in past years, they've had to run a power line over from the firehouse. And so, you know, and I know that they also there was a plan that was just developed recently that people from Arundel have to go down to Kennebunk, I think, for, you know, if they need showers, like their power's out for several days or something like that.
Right, the regional emergency shelter will be at the middle school.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking that it might be good to have some level of self-sufficiency on that, because that's assuming that, you know, people can drive there, which might not be a realistic assumption. Might be something you need something closer than all the way down at the whatever.
We are a recognized shelter at the fire station. I think we're licensed for like 8 or 10.
Yeah.
We have the cots, we have the shower, handicap shower.
But that was before you split up all the rooms, now
We have
I
the
don't know that
kitchen,
you-
yeah.
But I think it would be good to at least
And
consider.
we've literally
us.
never had anybody go to that shelter in the 17 years I've lived here, ever.
But I think
I don't know, my wife's almost
emergency
sent me over there a few
generation or something
times.
at the new
That's a different chapter.
fire
You're gonna be able
for us to
That's
continue
a
operating.
necessity nowadays, you gotta have that.
Battery backup or generator backup or
Well,
something.
and so I know like the town of Arundel does not pay, the way that they pay is basically by direct deposit now. And so I don't know if that's something that really would have a whole lot to do with the town hall, but that seems like a big vulnerability. If power goes out, people don't get paid. The computers are down, and so I'm not really sure how that would tie into this, but you know, power generation might.
You probably have a payroll
That's a
company.
given nowadays.
Nope.
You gotta have a generator sitting out there.
Yeah. Or a battery backup at the
Those are
very least.
interesting thoughts and things that need to be discussed as we put this thing together.
That'll be part of the infrastructure when we decide to.
Just so it's in people's minds as we go forward.
Do you have something else, Ethan?
No, that's
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Okay, why don't we call it tonight then, and in 2 weeks we'll reconvene.
Catching up to do.